Alright, so today I'll be talking about ELA Battle Royale, just talking about how the similarities and differences between Gallagher, Campbell and Latimer, and Vidton, and just seeing how they approach English language arts instruction and how we can see the good and the bad within all their theories, and of course, agreeing and disagreeing with certain aspects or utilizing their approaches in different scenarios. So, starting off with Gallagher, he proposes these three big questions into reading and how we approach instructing our students on a text. The three questions are: what does it say, what does it mean, and what does it matter? And that's just his way of establishing kind of like a close reading guidance for our students and providing support to help them dig deeper into the text. So he relies heavily on like close reading and how students need time and guidance with complex texts in order to understand and like not assume that all of our students are experienced readers and that we as in teachers need to be there to help them and support them and make sure that they're getting like the deeper meanings behind the text. And so he encourages a second draft reading to teach our students to embrace confusion when they're approaching these complex texts. And as a teacher, in order to help them with that, we need to provide them with a focus and a purpose in the reading, and that really just helps them to hone in onto the text and engage with the lesson. Some other things he brings to the plate is assessments to monitor comprehension, and that helps us reflect on our students' progress as well as the results that we're yielding from our instructional strategies and how we can adjust it for this. And he talks about framing the text to activate background knowledge, and that just means like how you're gonna bring the text to our students, what strategies or lessons that we'll do before we actually engage with the text in order to better prepare our students for it. And he encourages explicit vocabulary instruction to enhance the comprehension of the text our students read, and metaphorical thinking practice in order to improve their writing. This kind of goes with other theories of how using analogies can really help our students make connections with the text to real world situations or personal experiences. Moving on to Campbell and Latimer, a big quote that I took from them was read like a writer. And this kind of makes me think about when I was younger and struggling with writing essays. And I used to read a lot of books, and so my father always said, like write like the authors that you've read about. And so this kind of takes the opposite of it, like read like a writer, as if you were writing this book yourself. And so it kind of plays in on itself. And he talks about, or they talk about steering away from formulaic teaching of writing, and he encourages students to find their own voice in writing. But he kind of follows similarly with Gallagher as he encourages exposure to high quality models of writing, and his argument is that students' writing will benefit from the ability to identify the tone, style, diction, rhetoric, sentence structure, other aspects of writing. When they learn to identify this in the text that they're reading, this can actually help them improve with their writing as well. And he also kind of falls in line with Gallagher with low stakes versus high stakes assessments. Just having assessments to allow us to address the progress of our students, just get like an idea of where they're at and where they're struggling with. And I like how he takes it one step further, saying how you can do low stakes and high stakes assessments. And so you can have like these low stake assessments that are just in there to kind of take the pressure off students. It gives them a chance to be exposed to what they will be experiencing in the actually graded assignment. And so by doing low stakes assessments before doing high stakes assessments, it gives our students a chance to be exposed to like our expectations basically, and allows them to be better prepared for it and not question what they're going to have to do. And so that kind of brings me back to Gallagher's point about providing a focus and a purpose. And so when we let our students know what is to come, it just takes that stress away from them and gives them a chance to prepare for it. And once again, to tapping into the students' background knowledge and using like those metaphors and analogical thinking to develop these real world connections with the text, which once again plays with Gallagher's argument. of framing the text to activate background knowledge. So background knowledge is a big thing that pops up a lot. But moving on to Vinton, we kind of get a little contrasting views here. His argument is really strong about how close reading can prevent us from developing our own ideas. And so this kind of plays with how Campbell Latimer says students must find their own voice. And Vinton argues about our students being able to develop their own ideas, and he argues that close reading and when we frame the text and when we provide these guiding questions, we're giving the students the answers versus allowing them to come to their own conclusions. And so he believes that can heavily affect, negatively affect their ability to develop their own ideas. And he goes on to argue as well with avoiding heavy workloads and instead to give our students the time and opportunities to observe and interpret and question the text themselves. This just plays into the fact of allowing them the opportunity to develop their own ideas of the text that they're reading. And it also provides understanding of the thought process that is involved in deeper reading. And so when students are able to go through these activities, they get a better understanding of how not just them, but how everyone goes through this, and that it is a process and it can be a struggle, and even for teachers. And so allowing them to be exposed to that, it could help prevent them from being frustrated when they're struggling with the text, when they realize that everyone is going through the same thought process as them. He also argues about providing complex text alongside complex thinking, which kind of goes with that whole thought process, and just gives our students more opportunities to find their own voice as opposed to just emulating, which comes from when we provide them with modeled texts or essays or examples, or when we're giving them like these answers. Instead of emulating the text, Vinton encourages them to have the opportunity to find their own voice. And to do this, we can still provide guided questions, but just try to make them more open-ended. So, allows them the opportunity to find their own paths to the conclusions or opinions that they develop, instead of us giving them guided questions with the expectation of receiving a certain or a specific response from our students. And he also stresses to assign text within our students' abilities. And so he talks a lot about, the Gallagher when he was talking about, how was it? Instead of making our students read like all these texts about like the history of a certain book and then go into the book, it kind of provides like an opportunity for our students to kind of get burned out on the subject. Maybe they're not as interested or engaged. And so if we just assign like complex texts to our students that are within their abilities, and not front load too much reading before they're engaging with this text, it allows our students to be more interested in the text and not feel like it's just like another lesson, but it's kind of an exciting text that they can dive and dig into. And as long as the reading is within their abilities, we can avoid too much frustration. And of course, we can always provide like these open-ended questions that will help guide them through their readings. Another thing that he brings up again too, that's similar with Campbell and Latimer, is the low-stakes writing, which really helps them develop more confidence in their abilities when they're not being faced with a major assignment that will receive a grade that can really affect their overall score in the class. And so by offering them these free writes and journal entries, or even just pair shares, just like little assignments that allow them to talk and develop their own ideas on an essay and develop their abilities as writers, really just prevents any potential frustration or confusion or stress from a major assignment. They have time to be better apt and prepared for it. So overall, I see a lot of good similarities between these theories. Of course, there's that stark contrast with Vinton arguing against close reading, going so far as to say that it's like spoon-feeding our students, and that we always talk about productive struggle. We want our students to work towards these skills, and of course, develop the ability and confidence to become independent learners as well. And that's it.